I am an addict, and I really need help in getting over it. It all started innocently enough, or at least that's what I told myself back in 2021. One idle evening, I came across a gambling website. Out of sheer curiosity and a touch of boredom, I decided to try my luck. I deposited $20, a small amount, but significant in my currency. Within minutes, it was gone. I shrugged it off, considering it a cheap lesson. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a nightmare that would consume my life. Fast forward a few months, and the unexpected happened. I was laid off from my job with just a month's notice. Panic set in as I frantically searched for another position, but luck was not on my side. With my final paycheck in hand and desperation gnawing at my resolve, I returned to the gambling site. I reasoned that a big win could solve my problems, but instead, I was pulled into a vicious cycle. At first, it seemed like a good idea. Just one big win, I told myself. One big win would pay off my bills, and maybe even give me a little extra to survive until I found another job. But gambling is a cruel mistress. I lost more than I won, and the losses began to pile up. I started taking loans from friends, ex-bosses, and family members. It seemed so easy at first. Everyone was willing to help. But as time went on and my debts grew, their patience wore thin. "Listen, man," my old boss said over the phone, a hint of frustration in his voice. "I lent you money because I wanted to help, but it's been months. You need to start paying me back." "I will," I replied, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "I just need a bit more time. Things have been tough." Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The debt climbed to a staggering $25,000. I was drowning. Each time I landed a new job, the cycle repeated. My paycheck would hit my account, and almost immediately, I'd gamble it away, convinced that this time, things would be different. This time, I would win big. "Why don't you just stop?" a friend asked one night, concern etched on his face. "I can't," I whispered, shame burning my cheeks. "If I don't gamble, I'll never be able to pay off my debts. My salary isn't enough." The truth was, I felt trapped. If people found out I had a job, they'd start demanding their money back. And if I couldn't pay, they'd threaten to expose my gambling habit to my employers. The fear of losing another job, of being humiliated and shunned, drove me deeper into the darkness. My lowest point came when I lost my third job in 2 years. I remember sitting in my tiny apartment, the walls closing in on me. The room was dark, the only light coming from the computer screen in front of me. My bank account was empty, and my phone buzzed incessantly with messages from creditors. "What am I going to do?" I muttered to myself, burying my face in my hands. "I can't keep living like this." The thought of ending it all crept into my mind more than once. It seemed like the only way out. But then I thought about my family, the humiliation they would endure, the pain of losing me. I couldn't do that to them. One night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I heard a knock on my door. My heart raced. No one visited me anymore. I got up, crossed the room, and opened the door a crack. To my surprise, it was an old friend, someone I hadn't seen in years. "Hey," he said, smiling warmly, "can I come in?" I hesitated but stepped aside to let him in. We sat in awkward silence for a moment before he spoke. "I heard about your situation," he said gently. "I want to help." I laughed bitterly. "Help? Unless you've got $25,000 lying around, there's nothing you can do." He looked at me, his expression serious. "Have you considered going to a support group? There are places that help people with gambling addictions." I shook my head. "I don't need a support group. I need money." "No," he replied firmly. "You need help. This isn't something you can fight alone." His words stuck with me long after he left. I resisted at first, but eventually, I found myself at a meeting for people struggling with gambling addiction. The room was small and filled with people from all walks of life. As I listened to their stories, I realized I wasn't alone. Their struggles mirrored my own, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. "Hi, I'm John," I said when it was my turn to speak, "and I'm a gambling addict." The words were hard to say, but admitting my problem was the first step toward recovery. I attended meetings regularly, finding solace in the support of others who understood my pain. I began to see a counselor who helped me develop strategies to resist the urge to gamble. It wasn't easy. There were days when the temptation was overwhelming, but with each meeting and each counseling session, I grew stronger. Slowly, I started to rebuild my life. I found a job, and with the help of a financial advisor, began to create a plan to pay off my debts. One day, as I was leaving a meeting, I ran into my old boss. "John?" he said, surprise evident in his voice. "Hi," I replied, feeling a pang of shame. "I know I still owe you money and I'm working on paying it back." He waved his hand dismissively. "I'm not here about the money. I'm glad to see you're getting help. That's more important." His words brought tears to my eyes. I had spent so long believing that everyone saw me as a failure, but here was someone who believed in my ability to change. It was a powerful moment, one that fueled my determination to stay on the path to recovery. Months turned into a year, and then another. I stayed committed to my recovery, attending meetings and counseling sessions regularly. My debts slowly decreased as I made consistent payments, and I began to rebuild relationships with friends and family. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments of darkness, but I was no longer alone. One evening, as I was sitting in my living room, my phone rang. It was my old friend, the one who had encouraged me to seek help. "Hey, John," he said. "I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." "I'm doing better," I replied, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "Thanks to you." He chuckled. "You did the hard work. I'm proud of you." After we hung up, I sat there for a moment, reflecting on how far I had come. The road to recovery had been long and arduous, but I had made it. I had faced my demons and come out the other side stronger. As I looked around my small but cozy apartment, I felt a sense of peace. My life was far from perfect, but it was mine, and I was finally in control. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but with the support of my friends, family, and the recovery community, I was ready to face them. The next morning, as I walked to work, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. My journey had been a difficult one, filled with twists, darkness, and moments of despair, but it had also been a journey of growth and self-discovery. I learned that no matter how deep the abyss is, there is always a way out. And as I continued on my path, I knew that I would never allow myself to fall into the trap of gambling again. My life was worth more than the fleeting thrill of a bet. It was a lesson hard learned, but one that would stay with me forever. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I had found my way out of the darkness, and I was determined to keep moving forward, one step at a time.